Hey there, and welcome to Business Over Cocktails. I'm Lauren Najar, your host and hype woman, bringing you real talk about entrepreneurship. This is the podcast where we dive into the bold whys, the messy middles, and the game-changing aha moments that lead to success. You'll hear unfiltered stories from entrepreneurs, plus bite-sized solo episodes inside the Business Chaser series, where we cut through the noise and get straight to what actually drives sales, visibility, and growth. So whether you're here to get fired up or finally feel seen in your business journey, pull up a seat, pour your favorite drink, and let's have a real conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Business Over Cocktails podcast. I am sitting with Heidi Schmidt today. And again, I think I start all of these episodes out the same exact way where I'm like, I'm so excited. I get to learn more about my friends and their businesses and their story. And it's the same case here today because, again, Heidi and I, we haven't even been connected for like a year, but like we've worked together. I met you in person recently and, we talk on Instagram. So I'll do a formal introduction, but I'm so excited to hear about your story and about you and just have a cool conversation. So Heidi Schmidt is a marketing strategist. I have a long list of things that I'm going to say. Marketing strategist, social media agency owner, social media hero, content ninja. I actually wrote this one, lifesaver of businesses when it comes to social media. And then candidate for delegate of Maryland District 31. At the time of this recording, you haven't officially announced your candidacy yet, but by the time this episode comes out, you'll be running for state delegate.
Yes, I will. Yeah, thanks for the intro. It's funny because sometimes I feel a little, and we've talked a lot as business owners about imposter syndrome, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for all of the cool things that we do. And so it's awkward to me when other people introduce me. I'm like, oh yeah, I do those things.
But what's funny though, because I really wanted to record this part when we were talking. So like before we actually started this episode, I asked Heidi and I go, hey, how do you want to be introduced? And she goes, oh, I call myself a marketing strategist and like I have this agency. But I was on a podcast yesterday and called myself a content ninja and a social media hero. I'm like, done and done. Like, I don't even have to worry about this. I'm going to say this too. So it's so funny that you just said that. Like, oh, I don't know. I don't like to be introduced, but like, I love it. But no, it's so true. And I think that was going to be like a kind of around my first question for you was, we say marketing strategist and social media agency owner, and I'm in the same realm as you. I do similar things as you. What do you think people don't know about what you do every day?
Oh, there's so many things that I do. People think that social media is just posting pretty things to Instagram. But more often, social media, if you're being intentional and purposeful and strategic, it's so much more than just posting just to post. And I tell clients all the time, like, let's be intentional. Is this driving to your goals? It's really funny because I was just writing a post for myself about this earlier. I had a client go viral recently, like literally like 250,000 views on a reel. And they're like a home services provider. And we had the conversation. He's like, it was pretty cool to see. Like, it's great getting, almost 400 new followers. But ultimately, we were like, those aren't our ideal followers. Those aren't homeowners. Those are other home service providers. So, a lot of what we do, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is talking clients off a ledge. I think that's what a lot of people don't give social media managers that are actually being thoughtful and strategic about these kind of things. They don't give them credit for the amount of ledge talking and coaching that you have to do. Like literally, I was having a conversation with a consulting client the other day, and she is so lovely, and I'm so excited for her launch that she's doing. And she's like, well, I'm going to start a Substack, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And I was like, is Clubhouse even still a thing? She's like, what do you mean? And I was like, you don't need to be everywhere. Let's focus on the audiences that you have and nurturing those rather than stretching yourself and trying to be everywhere. So there's a lot of hand-holding and coaching that I think a lot of people don't give social media managers credit for.
That is like, we're not even 5 minutes in. I feel like that was a mic drop moment because I feel like, not, and again, like not to bash anyone or whatever, but like that is part of the job. It's because we have the expertise and we live it every day. We understand social media habits, social media content, marketing, all the things so differently than somebody who is, and I actually just recorded with, Melissa. We both know Melissa. She came to our retreat like a month ago or so. She actually spoke in her episode where she doesn't like doing the social media aspect of it all. Because I asked her a question of like, what surprises you about running a business? And she goes, I got into this for design, not to like do admin or be a social media content creator. Like, because when she started, it wasn't that big of a deal to be on social media. And so like, when it comes to people who aren't in marketing, business coaching, whatever it is, but also too, I want to say we both reflected that like we also don't like marketing for our businesses. And I feel like that it is such a hang up when it comes to our own businesses as well, where, we put in so much effort to make such a great presence for our clients that like then ours lacks as well.
That has been a huge hurdle that I've had to get over. When I started my business in 2020, and most of my early clients came to me from word of mouth. I did not really have to market myself. I could just focus on my clients. And today, most social media managers, and again, we talked a lot about this on the retreat, social media managers, I feel like have a very high burnout rate. Because it's one of those industries that never turns off. And no, we're not curing cancer or anything, but similar to working at a hospital, like our industry does not turn off. There are very few holidays. Everyone has that expectation like, oh, did you put up the happy holidays post? Are you doing a story for this thing? Like there's that expectation from clients that like we are on all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't have to market myself. Like I kind of networked my early clients. But as I realized, I think when we started working together, I was very much at the point where like, I need to diversify this thing. I love my clients, but I don't want to manage Instagram forever. I do not want to be a social media manager forever. And it's exciting, but as you bring on new offers, like you legit have to market those things. And I'm launching my masterclass. I'm finally like throwing spaghetti at a wall and doing the dang thing instead of overthinking it, because I'm like, if I don't do it now, I won't ever do it. And it's a lesson, we also, as experts of our trade, like we have to stay on top of all the marketing trends and understanding what works and how different strategies work. And I tell my clients, I'm like, I beta test everything on myself. When I want to recommend a new platform to a client or a new service or something, I try it on myself first. Like if there's a reel, if there's a video editing technique, like all that kind of stuff, like I'm going to test it on myself first instead of just being like, oh yeah, sure, I can do that. Because half the time, like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to recommend this thing.
I test it and then the test fails time and time again.
Exactly. That's just not something I do or am comfortable doing. And it's a good lesson in boundaries, like knowing what services you actually want to offer. In my early days of freelancing, I don't know if you did this, but I tried to do everything. I built websites. God, I hate building websites.
I did not build websites. I was always a firm no on that.
I built a few websites and I love them. I love the clients that I built them for, but I am not a website designer. I've worked with some brilliant website designers, but I am not one of those people.
Yeah, not a graphic designer, not a web designer. That was always a for sure no for me.
And it's funny. So you mentioned that I'm running for office, and because, running for office is expensive and there is not a lot of money in it. So the early phase of kicking this thing off has very much been out of my own pocket. I hired a graphic designer to do my logo. She's a former client of mine. I absolutely love her work. All of my friends were like, why did you hire a graphic designer? Because I don't want to figure out my own branding. It's going to change every time I go into Canva if I do that. Like, I need someone to just create the thing for me. And then everything else I'm going to be creating for myself anyhow.
Yeah. So I don't think I knew. I think you might have mentioned it because when you just mentioned about building your business in 2020 or you're starting your business in 2020, I think I knew that, but I don't remember if we ever talked about it. But I think you were doing something in your corporate life. You can correct me if I'm completely wrong. But what led you into the world of like wanting to do this?
Oh, let's go back a couple decades. Let me take you back.
Take me back.
I'm gonna age myself here. So I have always been an early adopter of content marketing. I had a blog on LiveJournal in the early days of the early aughts, like 2001 through like 2007 is probably when I moved over to WordPress. So I was a blogger in like the early days of blogging. I was on Facebook. I was the first of my friends on Facebook in 2004 when it was just colleges. They didn't let all the peasants out onto the platform. It was just like college people. You had to have a .edu email address.
I know. I couldn't wait to get my .edu email address because I also was on Facebook only when they were college people. So I could not wait to get my edu email.
Yeah. So I've always kind of been, and the thing that always attracted me to that, and it's not so different. I was a political science major, and politics and marketing are not so different because you have a message and you're trying to persuade people to either vote for you or to back your legislation, whatever it is. But I kind of fell into marketing on the nonprofit side and then had really random career. But I moved to a content marketing agency in like the mid 2010s after I had my son. And it was sink or swim. You're going to learn everything. So I learned everything about lead gen. I learned everything about SEO. I learned everything about social media because I was managing 7 clients on my own, doing everything, project managing, creating the content, managing the freelancers, everything. Fast forward a few years, in 2020, I was a marketing director. And it was a small business consultancy. And I loved the work that I was doing, but their business was kind of hit hard at the beginning of the pandemic. And so when my job was eliminated, literally like a week and a half after the pandemic started and everything shut down, I was like, well, what do I want to do? And I had some really, really awful bosses. And, this is something that not many people know, but like my son now we know he's autistic. And we have had since probably the age of 2, he was in speech therapy. He was in physical therapy. He was in occupational therapy. We've done tutoring. We've done private reading tutoring. We have done all of the things over the past 10 years. He's 12 now. And right around when he started kindergarten, I had a boss who it was like over the summer, and I left at like 6 o'clock, and I was really excited. And we had just gone through a whole rebranding, and she was really bad at delegating. And I later got kind of in trouble for being excited about leaving at 6 o'clock. And so I knew I wanted at some point to write my own story, to not be beholden to jobs that give you 10 days of PTO and think that that's generous. And that covers sick time and your vacation time. And as someone who doesn't live near family, and it takes me a solid day to drive up to my family in Vermont from Maryland, I felt like I was missing out. So in 2020, when I lost my job, it's always gut-wrenching when you lose your job, like, holy shit. Thank God for the CARES Act. The CARES Act really helped me get my business up and running, making whatever I made on unemployment each week. But I did it because I wanted that time and I wanted that flexibility. And I took kind of a month because he was still virtual schooling, and you have a little one, so you don't know the days of virtual schooling. But those days, whew. He was in first grade when they started virtual schooling and did not go back to school until the middle of third quarter of second grade. So we had almost a year of virtual schooling, and I didn't know what life was going to look like. Like, how long is this thing going to last? What's the deal? So we kind of took a month figured out like, okay, let's start this thing. I really like social media. Let's just see. Let me just put it out to my network on LinkedIn. Literally, it was a LinkedIn post. And someone that I knew through a running group reached out, and she was an HR director. And she's like, hey, my company really needs someone to manage our LinkedIn page. And for, $550 a month, which if you're a social media manager, please charge more than $500 a month. Please, please, please.
Yes.
And yeah, now here I am 5 years later.
Okay, so e-learning. I know a little bit about it. My sister is a 4th grade teacher, and I've heard horror stories, and I have a few other friends who are teachers as well. My sister kind of lucked out though, because she had my niece March 13th of 2020, and Indiana locked down that following Monday. So it was Friday the 13th that year. We saw them in the hospital. Like, we went. It was the day she was born. My husband and I drove from Chicago. And if you don't know, Chicago and Indiana, or Illinois and Indiana, are completely different states. Chicago, from where I live, is 45 minutes away. And during that time of the year, it was absolutely insane that I could drive 45 minutes and be in another world, essentially. So nothing was really shut down yet, but we drove from Chicago, which all the grocery stores were being ransacked at that point. And we drove, and yeah, it was crazy to shut down, and saw my niece fine, didn't have to wear a mask, but by Monday I couldn't see her for months. It was just so crazy. And I think you have a very similar story that I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs do, where I think even Logan, who we both know, I think her job was eliminated during the pandemic as well. And a lot of people were kind of pushed into this. But also, it's how you kind of described it now. What I took from it was that it was almost like this opportunity.
It was.
Because, like, of course, like you said, it's definitely scary when you lose your job, and it sucks. And especially when there's a global pandemic going on. But like, it was such a good opportunity for you to kind of reassess what you want and what you don't want. And then, like, I had a job. I didn't lose my job during the pandemic, but my job required me to stay at home for 2.5 years. And by the time we were all coming back to the office, I left. I was able to leave. So I think, like, I don't know if you have seen this, but I've been seeing people who did start their businesses through the pandemic. Like, because of the pandemic, they are at home, they lost their jobs, they did all the things, but they are now going back to the workforce because their businesses failed. So what do you think is different about what you're doing versus, like, maybe like there was a boom definitely of people starting businesses during 2020 and 2021. So what do you think has kept you going this long?
I love the flexibility that I have. And it's funny because as I'm shifting and, the economy, I feel like is not great right now. And a lot of people are scaling back, and marketing is always one of the first things to get cut, which seems kind of counterproductive because marketing is the thing that helps your business grow. But it has allowed me to, as I've lost clients, I've been able to do other things like more strategy sessions, more consulting, VIP days. And it has allowed me to really diversify my income. And I was just thinking, I had a conversation with a client the other day who she is kind of one of those people who had a business and she never really like fully invested her time in her business. And she went back to work full time because her business was never super profitable. And she's like, it's not anything that you've done, but like, I can't fund this out of my own pocket. And I just don't even know that I want to be doing this anymore. And, there is a statistic out there that most businesses fail within the first 3 to 7 years or something like that, like 5 to 7 years. I don't know the exact statistic, but if you make it past that milestone, like, it's kind of a miracle. Like 90 something % of businesses fail within that first, like, we're going to say 4 to 7 years. And I do wonder what the reasoning is. I feel like it's a combination of burnout, like doing all the things. Like, people go into business because my old boss used to say this, like, he used to coach private practice physical therapists, and you do what you do because you're passionate about what you do. And you don't go start your own practice because you want to run a business. You want to be able to practice your profession. We go to school for writing or whatever, we don't go to school to become business owners. There's something that we crave when we open a business, whether it's time freedom, whether it's money freedom, whether it's whatever it is. And I feel like it's usually money and a lack of business knowledge that people kind of leave their businesses.
Yeah, I think it's almost like you have this vision in your head that you think this is how it's going to look. And I think that comes from burnout too. That's what I feel like causes burnout, is that you feel like your business should be making this much money by X amount of time, or, there's just like, it's hard to be transparent, and it's hard to find the transparency when you're in early entrepreneurship. And I think your expectations are completely blown out of the water when it comes to actually building your business, like, because everyone will have you make it seem like it's so easy, and it's not. And yeah, I've heard a similar thing. It's like the percentage actually drops significantly after even year 2. If you get to 2 years in business, that's actually really good. But then if you get to like 5 years, that's really good. I think I looked that up when I hit year 5. And even then, when you look at being a woman or being from another diverse background, then that percentage even drops way lower. And like when you get into those statistics of like women-owned businesses, 6-figure women-owned businesses, and then it's just there's not a lot of stats. There's not a lot of positive stats about that.
Yeah, and it can feel daunting. I had no idea when I took on my first client. I had no idea about anything. I was like, well, this is great. Like, this is going to help supplement my income. Like, if I can replace my salary, I will consider myself successful. And I did that within, I think it was like the first year and a half. I was able to match what I was bringing home in my salary. So my bring home. And then after that, it was like the next goal was like, wouldn't it be really cool if I could make 6 figures? Wouldn't that be really cool? Like, my salary as a marketing manager for the last 5 years of my career pretty much was stagnant between $52,000 and like $62,000 a year, which is woefully low considering I had been out of college for 10 years. Like, the marketing industry is so overwhelmingly underpaid and undervalued. It's disgusting. And I was working in a couple of those jobs that I had, even after my time working for a couple different agencies. I was a marketing team of 1 doing everything, which, to my benefit is that's how I got my strategy background, by doing all of the things for these small bare bones teams. Like, okay, well, I got to report up to why this makes sense. Okay, well, you want me to try this thing? Like, okay, let's go for it. Let's build the funnel. Let's do the SEO. Let's build the social presence. All of these things really helped shape me as a marketer. But, by the time I hit year 3 was when I started outsourcing and I built my team, and I really started being like, I'm an agency owner. I'm not just a social media freelancer anymore. I have a team. And that is when I started investing in understanding how to better run my business, how to structure it, how to have those systems, and how to, I don't want to say build a brand, because I had kind of already built my brand, even though like it is what it is. But it was when I really started being like, you know what, like, we're going to do this thing. And, there are always lessons in growth. There are lessons in growth, especially when, I talk very openly on my own podcast about how over 6 months, I lost about almost $8,000 of recurring revenue. It's probably closer to 10,000 now because I seem to be hemorrhaging clients, which is not a bad thing. Like, I can replace the income. There were a lot of my lower paying clients, but it's still painful. And how do I adjust with that when I have a team that I have to pay? I have bills that I have to pay. I have a business coach that I pay. Like, all of these things. So, and I think there's a lot of people in business that, year 3, 4, or 5, when it comes to like that tipping point of growth, like, do I stay the same or do I grow? And if they choose that growth, like, growth is hard. Making those hard decisions is really, really difficult. Like, right now I'm like, okay, I just lost another client. Like, what am I going to do? Like, do I condense my team? Do I take on some of the work myself? Like, I don't really want to do that. I'm not going to lie. Or, okay, well, I know that if I can do 2 VIP days a month, I can keep my team and be okay for my family because tutoring for my son is expensive, I like vacations. I like to spend weekends at the beach in the summer. Like, I like nice things.
Yeah, I think the growth is lonely too. Like, even if you do have a team, like, and you have that support, like, sometimes people don't want to grow. And maybe that's why people end up failing in their businesses or choose a safer option to go back to corporate. And maybe it's, we can think about like playing small and stuff too. Like, growth is hard, just exactly
Mhm.
like you said. And I think it's hard because you're constantly making yourself uncomfortable, but at the same time, you're also just like, it can be very lonely too, because yes, you have a team. Yes, you have a supportive partner and family, but like no one knows what you're doing except for you. And I mean, that's why it's nice to have business friends and get in communities and things like that. But I think like the idea of growth, at least, and then this is something that I've had to come to terms with lately as well, is like, if I look at myself like playing small and not growing, and yes, that's also uncomfortable because I'm like being stagnant. And the reason why I fear growth is because I fear maybe like a little bit of judgment from like people who are like super near and dear to me. But I think the part about being lonely at the top really like strikes a chord with me of like, okay, if I keep evolving and like, and that's the same thing like with what you're doing is I think I know about your business. I know about how like you're shaping up your business and positioning yourself a little bit differently. And so like the shedding of clients seems to be natural. It's not like you're putting
Mhm.
on a horrible service or anything. It's like a natural thing. So like that happens when you are growing and you're positioning yourself and tweaking things and pivoting. And I think that if I look back over time, it's like, yeah, like people like relationships, friendships, like they don't make it with you because
Mhm.
naturally, like if they stop growing and you continue to grow, there's no room for those relationships and it sucks and it's not anyone's fault. It's just for me as a recovering people pleaser, it's very hard to think of it that way. And then it's hard to think that, okay, well, like I want all this success or this money and freedom and stuff, but like at what cost? And I think sometimes it's a real fear for a lot of people.
Yes. Yes to all of that. And people pleaser, perfectionist, all of the P's, all of those P words.
Yep.
It's funny because one of the best things that I did was investing in a business coach because so much of growth is mindset and just that knowledge. And whether you're committed to growing or evolving, or whether you have an exit plan for your business or you decide like, hey, I don't want to do this alone and bring on a partner, like all those decisions are so strategic. And when you're making them on your own, like I feel like there's a lot of self-doubt.
Mm-mm.
And you can surround yourself with all of the business besties and all of the supportive family. I often hear from my family like, "Oh, that sounds like a lot of work." About a lot of things that I'm doing in my life. That sounds like a lot of work. Well, yeah, it is. It is, but there's payoff, whether it's being able to provide for my family and letting, my family go on a amazing vacation to Disney World that my husband and I paid for, and it was so special. Or whether it's, me running for political office. It's like everything has a purpose. Everything that we do, like do it with purpose. Like what's your why? And for
Mm.
me, like when we come back to it, it's like, okay, my why do I do this business? Because I have the flexibility to bring my son to and from school every single day. Because I have the flexibility to spend 2 hours in blaring sun at a middle school field day. Because I have the flexibility whether I want to sleep in and take a nap at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and then work till 8 o'clock at night. Like I have that flexibility if I'm not feeling well. In the same respect, like we are accountable to our clients. And that's hard. And it takes a certain level of integrity, whether you're like, I messed up, or, and even if it was your team, like you take ownership of that. And there's something about all of that that some people just don't want to have to own.
Yeah, I love the themes in some of these conversations that we're having too, and time freedom is such a huge thing. And I had asked someone else a similar question about, I think a lot of people want time freedom. Like, everyone thinks it's such a good idea. Of course, it would be amazing to have a flexible work schedule and work-life balance, or, whatever job you have, you're able to like go to your kids' soccer games and be home with your kids more and still get paid, what you need to get paid. But I think like the true solution at the end of the day is really like to work for yourself. And it took me a while to understand that like having your own business is not easy. And I know that it's not easy, but in my mind, I feel like I'm very like, okay, well, you're complaining about this job, then why aren't you going to start a business? And like, I'm just so eager for everyone to start a business and figure it out. But like, I understand now that it's not for everybody, and no judgment or anything. But like, then you have to live with, there's always payoffs to everything, or, things that you have to deal with everything. But like, it's just so interesting to me that like, we complain and complain and complain, and then you try the thing, and if it didn't work out for you, that's fine. But like, then don't complain some more if you don't feel like this is up to you to do it. I feel like it is very difficult and hard. But yes, and then just to reiterate the point, I think like it's not easy to build a business for sure.
No, no. And you wear all the hats. And that's hard. As someone with probably undiagnosed ADHD, like wearing all the hats is hard. It's, ultimately like if taxes don't get paid, like that's on me. If I forget to do something for a client, like that's 100% on me. If I miss a deadline, whatever it is, like you own all that. And there are some people, I think about my sister. My sister loves her 8 to 4:30. And to some, like, and I feel like it's very industry dependent, like being able to turn off and have that separation, because when you own a business, like separation is hard.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a solid boundaries. But I saw a TikTok the other day that was talking about like there was a woman who was like, oh, why do these younger millennials not want to work? They just want to do the bare minimum. And, as one, I am an elder millennial, so I take great offense to being lumped in with my Gen Z comrades. But here's the thing. And someone was like stitching this video, and they said something that was so profound to me. And I was like, that's exactly it. Gen Z, the kids in their 20s right now, they have seen their older peers, so all of us millennials, lose their jobs, live through a pandemic, live through, a once in a lifetime great recession. And our jobs have just been expendable. And we are not, when I was in the corporate life, like I wasn't valued. I didn't feel very valued. You're just at times like it was like a butt in a seat. And if you want to be more and you want to feel like you have purpose, that's when it's time to write your own story.
Mm.
And I get it. Like these Zoomers who are like, 5 o'clock, I'm done. Like, why aren't they willing to put in the extra 110%? Well, because they're not getting paid for 110% work.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably not even getting paid what they're worth. But yet, the CEOs are taking home their billions of dollars in bonuses. And the guys at the bottom are just like, why aren't you working more for not more money?
Yeah, that's so true. And it's hard. I feel like my husband, for instance, he's had his job now for 12 years where he currently is. He loves what he does. He loves his direct boss. He loves everything about his job. But then then there's those times where it's like, from a corporate level, like you don't feel like appreciated. And especially when you work for bigger corporations and stuff too. And, I resonate a lot with that too, where I worked in the banking industry for a really long time. And when it comes to finance, you think of finance and sales, there's a lot of money in there, which there is a lot of money. There is a lot of money. It's a bank. There's a lot of money in a bank. There's a lot of money in investments and stuff. But like that is one of the lowest paying jobs, is being a manager of a bank, or being someone who does, second mortgages, or is a customer service rep and has to be responsible for checking accounts, savings accounts, all these things. And even then just being like a bank teller, like you're responsible for so much. Like you have to like balance your drawer and like be responsible for like a lot of money throughout the day. And like I worked at a bank. When did I get my job? So like almost 15 years ago is when I first worked there. But the branch I worked at, we were notorious for being so busy. We had like hundreds, sometimes 200 transactions a day in an 8-hour shift. And it was like, you don't see that anymore with banks. And so this particular bank I worked at, it was notoriously busy. And I mean, again, 15 years ago, they're, probably busier than they are now. But like, yes, you're just a teller. Yes, you're just this person. But like, I feel like a lot of jobs too, like you kind of said, like they don't value what A, you're responsible for, but B, like you're the one bringing in the money. You're the one bringing in the bottom line. And I think that was always my problem too, is that I knew, like, I felt like I had to, I don't even know sometimes what I had to do to get a better raise. I say this too, like when I think about my journey and like working for myself, like I don't feel like it wasn't that I didn't respect authority. I got employee of the month or promotions, and I was promoted very quickly. And I was always a very good worker, and I excelled, and I was one of the younger managers when I was there. But I feel like that didn't matter. Like I did a good job and they would reward me in some other ways, but my raises were like 2%.
Yeah.
And so now like my friends, when they get their like yearly annual reviews, right? Like they like, yeah, my raise is only 1%. And it's like, you're going to barely notice that on your paycheck. And so like,
It'll be like $50 a week.
Exactly. And I feel like, when it came to then me like really pursuing this job or this career and then my own business, like I needed that. Like, yeah. And I think like when you think about it, it takes a while to maybe be profitable, and you have to invest some stuff and pay for team members, things like that. But your money that you can make is also uncapped. You can give yourself a raise whenever you want, but you have to work to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work there and work hard and work long hours sometimes to get to that point.
Yeah. It's also, not just about the money, but like how much time do you want to invest in your business? Because, kind of like I said, like social media doesn't ever turn off. But I learned, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in the past year is how many clients do I really want to manage? And how, as I diversify, like, okay, well, what is my project capacity? And learning to price ourselves accordingly for the money that we want to make. That's been a big lesson, because I've also learned that like I don't want to manage a big team. I don't want to have a huge team. So my management clients pay me a little bit more premium because I got the time, and like I'm still the account manager. I haven't ever hired a project or account manager. So you're getting me, you're getting my time, my access. And I'm not just running the business, I'm also running the accounts. It's knowing your capacity and your bandwidth and your opportunities for growth in business is so, so important, because it comes back to your mental health, that burnout that we've talked about, and knowing, okay, I'm tapped out this month. And, like I'm pretty much booked we're recording this in June. Who knows when it's going to go live? But like, okay, well, I'm booked for June. I can maybe take on one new retainer client for July, because one is going away, one in, one out. I like the number of retainer clients that I have right now. Like I've managed upwards of 18, and that was a lot, man.
That is a lot.
Because I was working for another agency, another agency that I started working with early on in my freelance career, and I was their account manager. So I was managing all of their client content as well as my own and creating some for my own. 18 clients is a lot of clients.
It is a lot of clients. I think when you're starting your business, like you want to just sprint to the magic number that's going to be very comfortable for you, right? So you're going to say yes to a lot of things. I think the question I was going to ask you, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned so far in your career? But I think like a lesson here that you just said was making sure that you're definitely making sure of like what your capacity is. And again, it's not going to be perfect. You don't know what that number will be. Sometimes it does take for you to overcommit to be like, no, I don't want this. But I think always keeping a temperature check on that of like, it's okay that you don't want to make 6 figures a year. I think that is a glorified number. And it's okay if you have a spouse or partner that also brings in money, that has a secure job, and you are bringing in enough money to make your family comfortable and doing the vacations and stuff. And I think like it's okay that you don't need to push for an exit plan on a giant agency, or like you said, have a giant team. You don't have to scale immediately to 7 figures or build multiple businesses. It's okay that you aren't doing those things, but it's important that you do whatever it is that you do in the boundaries you're setting for yourself and what's good for you and your family, not what everyone else thinks.
Yeah. And I feel like especially in the social media industry, there's lots of people out there preaching like, oh, make 7 figures and here's how I make 7 figures. And let me teach you how to sell digital products, blah, 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 noise, noise, noise. But when you try to replicate what someone else is doing, you're not putting your own personal touch on it. And ultimately, like one of those lessons is like people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. My business does not come to me from random Instagram followers. There are people that I build relationships with, and maybe it's through Instagram. I certainly have a couple of people that I have great relationships with that I've never actually met in person. But most of my clients are people that know me personally. And there is something to be said about that. Like, I loathe the whole faceless marketing trend. Like, can we just make that go away? Like, no. And so, if there's someone out there that's like thinking about starting business, like I love what you said about figuring out like what success looks like for you. Is that boundaries? Is that time freedom? Is that, don't put necessarily a dollar amount on it, but don't feel like you have to do what everyone else is doing.
It's so hard. And I think that just goes back to trends. And I think we can have probably a whole other episode on social media trends and why they are not for your business unless it goes with your brand. But okay, so I have one question for you as we wrap up though. And I think it's a very timely question for what we're conversating about, but what's something you had to unlearn as a business owner?
Multitasking.
Unlearn it?
Unlearn multitasking. And I say that as someone likely with undiagnosed ADHD. They say that multitasking is the same as like driving a car drunk. Like it is so counterproductive. So multitasking, like it will literally take me an entire day to do 3 things that should have otherwise take me maybe an hour. Because I flip from task to task to task and everything's half done and then I have to go back and oh my God, where was I? And like multitasking is one of the biggest things that I've had to unlearn. And it helps. Like the days that I'm not trying to like multitask, not trying to be a hero. And there is something that my business coach coaches us on, that to-do lists are not helpful. If you're not scheduling your priorities, they're not your priorities. So like schedule your tasks. And she's coached me on that. And it makes a difference when I like block out time for video editing or like block out time for my own marketing or have those admin days. It makes a huge difference when I'm not trying to do a million different things all at once, because then I just feel overwhelmed and then I just go lie in my bed. Like the world is hard.
I love that. I love that so much. I think that I'm going to steal that from your business coach, who I feel like I follow her as well.
You do. You do. She's amazing.
But yeah, so the last question I have is, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of this, the business that I've built, the life that I've built with the support of my husband and my son. And way back when I was a new college graduate back in 2006, I could have never imagined. I had aspirations to work in politics, and now here I am owning a business, a six-figure business, and getting ready. By the time this launches, I will have launched my own political campaign. And it's like the precipice of all of my dreams that I ever wanted in my life, which was to have a better life than I had growing up and to give my son a better life than I had growing up. And when I say better life, I mean being more involved than my parents were for me. And this thing that I've built, this little freelance business that is now an agency, like I get to do that. And I am so flippin' proud of sticking with it through the hard days and, appreciating the afternoons that I get to spend at his school and appreciating the fact that like, okay, I have the flexibility to run for this thing because of the values that I believe in. And I know what I need to do to get there. And I know what I need in my business to help me be successful in doing both.
I got a little emotional when you were talking just now. I did it. But it's so true. It's so cool to like hear you talk about just like hear you and also own all of the things that you're doing and talking about and all the things that you've built. But like exactly how you said of you're going to see all of these things come to fruition. And when you do push through the uncomfort and you continuously grow, that's what happens. I think I've shared with a couple people recently, like some of my clients who are kind of like in a point of struggle where they are not signing a lot of clients or haven't signed a client in a while. And I'm just like, man, I know this is the hardest part of business. This is truly the hardest part of business is at the beginning or when you're kind of stuck and you just have to keep powering through. And I recently had a moment where I think I stayed up late to work and I was going to bed and it was like 11:30 or midnight or something. And I just like laid down in bed and I'm just like, what am I even doing? Like, why am I even doing all of these things? Like, podcasts, retreats, business, all the things that I'm trying to do. I'm just like, what am I even building here? Because maybe it was a day where I didn't feel like I had any ROI on anything. But that's the fact of like what we know as business owners, because we've been around for a while and have businesses that are more than a few years old. It's that we know that the effort we put in is not instant gratification. That's what business isn't. You don't get the instant gratification. You have to put in a lot of work for then it to be easier down the road.
Marketing is such a long game. I tell all my clients that like marketing is a long game. And, there's lots of things that go into running a business, which is a whole other episode, like all those systems, all those back end things. But the biggest thing that any business owner is going to do is marketing themselves and doing whatever their business is, like being in your business and working on your business. And marketing is such a long game.
Where can people find you and connect with you and all the things?
You can connect with me on Instagram at Heidi Schmidt Creative. On Facebook, I have a Facebook page at Heidi Schmidt Creative. I have a podcast, which you can find on my website, HeidiJSchmidt.com. It is Stop the Scroll. You can look for it wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah, those are probably the best places to find me.
And what they say usually is all of this will be in the show notes, right?
Absolutely. It'll all be, I'm sure Lauren will link it all in the show notes.
Well, thank you for doing this. And again, this is another episode I'm recording before I feel like I have anything to show for it. So thank you for wanting to come on and just have a conversation with me. And I got to learn more about you.
This was amazing.
So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Over Cocktails, where real stories and bold business moves come to life. If this episode lit something up in you, share it with a friend, tag me at Lauren Najar or the podcast page at Business Over Cocktails. Make sure to leave a quick review as well. It helps more than you know. Until next time, keep chasing what matters and building the business that feels like you. Cheers.